I have to say, this new 12-team college football playoff seems like a really exciting and fresh start for college football. I mean, more teams. Imagine all the parity that could happen. The underdogs that will finally get their big shot. I'm excited for it. At least I wonder what the media is wondering about this revelation. They have to be excited about it, as I am. All I'm saying is Indiana did not deserve to be on that field. Strength of wins may not really matter. Quality of loss. Why aren't there more SEC teams? Oh my God! No, I'm not doing it. No. I refuse to discuss this. I'm not doing it. No, absolutely not. No.
Coming to you from this undisclosed location, it's the That's My Take podcast with Aiden Rouse.
Hello, my beautiful people, and welcome to the That's My Take podcast, the only podcast featuring a media personality that actually enjoys a Cinderella story or two. I am your host, Aiden. I still can't believe my Longhorns ran a toss play on 2nd and goal with the game on the line, Rouse, and we are talking some college football today. But more specifically, the way college football has been covered, because the new 12-team college football playoff and its coverage of it has made me realize something really bad. For a bit of context, when the first round of the college football playoffs happened, we saw teams of lower notoriety, like Indiana and SMU, finally get their big shot to go and compete for a national championship. They unfortunately lost those games, but what I took notice of was the almost immediate reaction from major media personalities and them taking some really deep digs at those smaller programs, claiming that they didn't deserve to be there and essentially trying to make a case that bigger schools like Alabama and South Carolina should have gotten in over those smaller schools. And this has made people realize, as well as myself, that a lot of big media personalities for college football for years now have essentially been shilling for big schools and the SEC in particular. And this has also made me realize that college football media hates underdogs, which is absolutely insane to me. I mean, considering even in different sports at the college level, underdogs are loved. I mean, look at March Madness. People celebrate those underdogs. They root for them to go far. Heck, they even speculate which team will be that big Cinderella run when the tournament comes around. But in college football, that discourse is just non-existent. People want to completely disregard smaller schools for being small. And now it's getting to a point where it feels like the media wants to punish good kids who simply won the games they're supposed to win for winning the games that they're supposed to win. The point is that if you win games you're supposed to, you should at least get a shot to play for a national championship. But today I want to talk about why this underdog hate is happening and what can we do to help fix it. Well, there's a lot to cover, so let's just jump right into it. When issues pop up like this, there's usually always a why. So that's what I want to start off talking about. Why are underdogs shunned so much? And let's look at the first big example that most people will probably point to when talking about this topic, strength of schedule. Simply put it, underdogs just don't really play as high quality opponents as maybe, say, some of the bigger schools. They usually always wind up playing those same smaller schools, which aren't usually as skilled as the bigger schools. So that leads to some people wanting to put an asterisk on their record by basically pointing out and saying, they didn't play the same level of competition that the bigger schools did. That, though, I do have a bit of an issue with, considering that, again, it's punishing good kids who are simply just doing what they need to do. They're beating the teams that are on their schedule. They can't control who they play. The only thing they can control is just simply lining them up, knocking them down, beating the teams that they're supposed to beat. And look, I totally understand that there's a lot of teams in really all sports that can be considered schedule merchants, in which they only appear to be good because they played weaker teams. But at the same time, I will say it only makes sense to see if they are truly schedule merchants by giving them a shot against the bigger schools who may have the more impressive wins. Because for all you know, they weren't actually schedule merchants, and they were in fact for real, and they put up either a really good fight or even straight up win. But as time goes on, it feels like there is one big common denominator when it comes to all this underdog hate, and it is the media companies that are covering college football. Because something that has happened to college football over the years is that we've seen media companies pay bigger loads of money to conferences such as the SEC and the Big Ten and the ACC to broadcast their games. And with that, since the college football playoff is such a subjective selection process that includes a lot of members of the media, that they think it's best for them and their bottom line to limit underdogs that get in, so that way they can get more members of their conference that they're covering in. But what makes it even worse to me is the fact that they go about it in such a hypocritical way. So they see these underdogs, they see them winning, and they decide, hey, we'll put a little bit of a spotlight on them. Sure, we'll send College Game Day to, let's say, Indiana when they're winning, and especially with Lee Corso being from Indiana. Yeah, why not? Look, everybody, we love the underdogs. We love that these small guys are going in and rattling off these wins. That is until those underdogs start winning more and more and more. And all of a sudden, that bottom line from ESPN that they may get from seeing more SEC teams, which is the conference that they're investing a lot of money into covering, not be able to get into the playoffs over Indiana, all of a sudden their attitude changes. And now it becomes a game of trying to make sure they can push all the agendas they can to make sure that a team like Indiana doesn't get into the playoffs, so that they can instead prop up, say, an Alabama team that lost 3 games, 2 of them to 6-6 teams, because that would help increase the SEC's bottom line, which in turn increases ESPN's bottom line. That's the part I hate about it the most, is that they have to do it in such a disingenuous and hypocritical way that they're trying to build this facade of liking the underdogs when in reality they just want to push them down if they're threatening their bottom line, which isn't what college football is about. It shouldn't be what amateur sports are about, which I feel like in turn has just exposed a whole other can of beans that I wish I could get into, but I can't for time's sake, about how much these media contracts and networks' bottom lines are influencing college football in a very negative way. So how do we fix this issue? How do we get college football media to embrace the underdogs more like how, say, March Madness has embraced the underdogs? More expansion? Maybe readjust how the selection process is to make it a little bit more objective? Really, at this point in time, I think the best thing we can do is we need to recognize that big media companies should not be having this much influence on college football. I mean, you see all the time about people asking, why is college football not as good as it once was anymore? Why is the tradition gone? Why is all this conference realignment happening? The simple answer is the media companies. They pay the schools a lot of money to be covered. And a lot of schools want a piece of that pie. And they're willing to throw away a lot of tradition and a lot of older rivalries so that way they can increase that amount of money they're making. And in case of a topic here, pushing narratives that are actively harming the sport and harming teams that should be in simply because they're not big enough. They're not in the conference that they like. Also, they can just increase the amount of revenue they're making by exposure. Because the more teams from one conference that are in the playoff, that will bring more exposure and it will make the average viewer say, oh, wow, there's so many teams from this one conference that are in the playoffs. That must mean that conference must be really fun to watch. And so they'll go and watch conference games that next season, which increases ratings, which increases the money made for the networks. So we need to start holding big media companies and big media personalities accountable for what they're doing to the underdogs and what they're doing to the sport as a whole. Pushing these types of narratives that are pushing these narratives and agendas that really don't serve any purpose to do good for the sport outside of lining their own pockets. And the good news is we've already seen examples of it. Kirk Herbstreit has been under fire a lot on Twitter as of late due to his comments made about the college football playoff. And a lot of people are just catching on that this is what college football is becoming, and we don't want college football to become a game of network contracts. We want it to be a game celebrating the long story traditions and pageantry of every school in the nation, including the small ones. And with that, ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary friends, my name is Zayden Rouse, and that's my take.